But I'm joined by Mathew, who's the sales director for Sandler Training, and you're going to talk about why salespeople fail, right, Raj? All right.
Yes,
so you've completed your master's
absolutely.
degree. You've got 10 years of experience in management, leadership, sales, marketing. So I'm sure you're going to share a lot of great insight with us today on your, kind of situations and instances that you've learned from in your leadership and throughout your career. So thank you so much for joining us. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your business as well as we go along here. So thanks again for your time, and we'll be back at the end to help you with questions and just do some closing remarks. So thanks again for being here. Awesome.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Good afternoon, friends. Today we have come to an exciting topic: why salespeople fail and what we can do about it. The next 30 minutes, I'm going to speak about the topic, ask you a few questions. If possible, you can put on the chat, and then just let you know as a housekeeping, this is a 1.5 hour workshop which we do. It's a very famous workshop we do for all our salespeople, but I'll try to cover in 30 minutes. So there might be some little faster version, but stop me or ask me in the chat if you need any clarification. Or at the end of the session, I have given my email ID so that you can send me some questions or we can arrange a call. So let me just start with what exactly Sandler Training is. Sandler Training is a global firm which talks to salespeople, talks about sales management and business leaders, and we also talk about customer service. We train around 30,000 plus people every year, and we help them to meet their quotas or overachieve their targets. We also say that without strategy, a salesperson cannot be successful. And we had done a poll, and we came to know that 96% of our clients recommend Sandler Training to everyone. So let me just ask you first with a quick question: what are you struggling with in your sales process? In a workshop, we actually take a break. We do break-up rooms, but here I would just go and give you the answers. So the most thing which is struggling sales process could be chasing buyers. That's very first. Then maybe you're wasting a lot of time to go after your buyers, or you're having a lot of stalls and objections. You're worrying about the price, or the client is worrying about the price. You're working too hard. You're feeling like yourself you're a pest. The password is salesman. Yes, you are right. Let me ask you a quick question. If somebody says salesperson, what comes up to your mind? I mean, I'm sure something like pushy, cheesy, sleek, used cars, salesman, or follow-up. These are some of the things which comes up as soon as somebody says salesman. Because that's what your filter comes up saying, hey, this is a salesman, be careful. So what are the most roadblocks or stalls or objections you face have evolved through interaction with the buyers, and not necessarily with your product or service? So it's more important what comes up as your stalls. Let me just go into and tell you whose system are you following. So this is typically our seller order, which as a salesman, what you do is first is do some need analysis with a client when you meet him, try to understand what he wants, and then present a proposal. Once you present a proposal, you try to cover everything what is there, and you try to close it. Now, this is the time when you try to close it, the client comes up with objections. When the client comes up with objections, you know what needs to be done, and you try to give him all the objections possible, and then you follow up, and then you follow, and then you follow, and nothing comes out of this. Let me tell you what a buyer or a prospect system works. So they work is they express interest in you. They say, hey, yeah, we are interested in your products and services. They show you they're motivated, and they ask you all the right questions and what needs to be done. They get all the information which is required for them from you, and they don't commit anything. Once they don't commit anything, they just disappear, because what happens is they are just looking for information from you, and once they have all the information, they're gone, they disappear, and we just follow up. And basically, this is what ideally we say we should have a win-win situation, but a seasoned salesman know that it is not the case because prospects see themselves as individuals with something to lose. And that this system, the goal is to get as much as possible from you without committing a purchase. So that's why it's very important to understand whose dance you're playing. So we call it a buyer-seller dance. When we call it a buyer-seller dance, and this is what it looks like. The client express interest, you do a need analysis, they act motivated, you present them, they get all the information required, you try to close, you avoid any commitments, and put all the objections possible. You handle all the objections and they disappear. What comes out at the end of the dance is you follow up, follow up, follow up, and nothing comes out. And that leads with a frustrated salesperson, and the other way, it leads an educated buyer. So it is key to understand who's leading this buyer-seller dance. And what happens when a buyer is in control? When the buyer is in control, there's no real understanding of needs because you don't understand his needs clearly. Solutions are present in an undefined problems. Closing efforts are not helpful, not the right time. And closing wastes salesperson time and energy because you could have saved this time and given somewhere else who's a prospective client we can close easily. So in the last 12 months, approximately how much has your sales challenge cost you? And to know this, you need to understand how much is your per hour worth. I think that's a different exercise altogether because you need to understand how much time are you spending on a prospect to close him. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how committed are you to eliminate your sales challenge? You can put it in your chat box. Is it 10? Is it 5? Is it 4? Because if you're really committed, it should be 10, should nothing less than that. So we at Sandler understand the philosophy very clearly. We believe that the salesperson are a profession. It's a professional. And the buyer must qualify for salesperson time and efforts. So in a role of a salesperson is to create an atmosphere, environment, which allows the customer to buy while the salesperson stays on the way. And this we understand very clearly by this diagram, which says we understand the learning process. And as my friend earlier in the presentation, he was talking about the 4 levels of learning. And this perfectly fits in where the unconscious incompetency is basically what you don't know, you don't know. Conscious incompetency is you know you're not good in something. And conscious competency is you know you're good in that. But the best is the mastery level, which is unconscious competency, whereas basically you just do it as based on your habit and it is competent. So we have developed something called the Sandler selling system. And Sandler selling system is nothing but a process with seven processes. The first one being bonding and rapport. Bonding and rapport is nothing but building a trust with your client. And once the trust is used, it is basically to erect a wall so that no competition come in. You need to be comfortable with them. You need to make yourself comfortable. You need to make them comfortable so that they can help you to understand their concerns, their issues. Once that is done, we need to have a mechanism which is a salesperson meets the prospect to understand what needs to be said. So for example, an upfront contract is nothing but before you meet a client, once you meet a client, you tell him the purpose of the meeting. What is the purpose of the meeting? Second is put the agenda. What's your personal agenda? What's the client's agenda? Then tell them what is the time it's going to take, whether it's going to take 30 minutes, whether it's going to take 45 minutes, and whether the client is good with that. And then you tell them what the outcome is. Tell them upfront I would not be offended if you say it's not a good fit. At the same, you should not be offended if I say it's not a good fit, because that gives a clear picture to the client saying that I am not here to sell. If there is a pain, there is a solution. So this is where we come out with the process 3, which we talk about the pain. Basically, the pain is nothing but the issues. What is the issue the client is facing? Because if you don't know the issue, we don't have a sale. We need to understand the issue. If we understand the issue, we can clearly tell them whether we can possibly help them or no. And to be very, very good with this is to try to understand, once somebody says an issue upfront, that is not the real issue. The real issue is something beneath it. You need to try to uncover it. And once you try to uncover it, we need to understand from the client whether he has the money to take care of that pain, because that's very important. Because if it's a pain, but if it's not important to the client, he might not have money or budget for it. If the client doesn't have the budget or the money, that's a time when you need to qualify the client. So the first is try to understand the issue. There's an issue, there is an opportunity. If there's a budget, there's an opportunity. And then the fifth one is the decision. You need to understand who else is involved in the decision. Is it the prospect who you're talking to, or there is somebody else in the decision-making process? Because if that's the case, we need to make sure that is included in our meeting. And once we know all this clearly, then we can tell the prospect saying, Mr. Prospect, we have qualified and we can go ahead. And once we go ahead, then comes that fulfillment. Basically, fulfillment is nothing but presenting what you have said just now. Now, this is the point where we tell the client how interested you are on a 0 to 10. And if the client says anything below 8 on a 0 to 10 scale, we know that we have not done a good job in our pain, budget, and decision process, because that is key to present the client. And once the client is presented, he needs to sign on the dotted line. We have a post-sell. Post-sell is basically a process where we tell the client, have we covered everything? Is there anything we have missed out which will stop you by making a decision? If that's the case, let us clear out today. Make sure you talk to the client saying that this is the best offer you can give, and you don't want a mail from the client saying that, oh, you know what, we went back to our existing vendor and he's matching your price, because you don't want that to happen, because you're giving everything on the line. This is just a reinforcement of your sale. So this is basically what is the 7 process step which we use in our selling system. So that was all about, I was trying to be as fast as possible, but I wanted to I wanted to point out in each slide what a system is. And once you know the system, the selling system, it no more sounds like you're a salesperson. You are a person who means business, and you know that you're keeping the client's pain in front of you before you can sell anything. So my final slide is, what is the one takeout for you for today? If there is something, this is the one takeout. You can ask me any questions you have so that we can make these sessions more viable. Let me just check if there's any questions, chat. So far, nothing. Rachel, I'm done. Unless if somebody wants some questions, or if you have any questions to
Amazing.
ask.
You're done already. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was trying to, there are a lot of things to cover, but I want to keep everything in 30 minutes and make sure I go to the
no
last
worries.
slide
So
and
I
explain
guess
everything.
maybe let's talk a little bit about you and how you've been affected by, everything that we've had to do to pivot as, salespeople, managers, adapting.
oh, we're doing X. So for me personally, I was a life coach. So I used to coach people, and now I got a niche where I coach salespeople to make them understand that once you do a practice and you run a system, there is no way you're going to fail. You might fail once, but if you keep on doing it, you become an expert. You become a master
Right. We've
in
heard
your
that quite a
craft,
bit today
and that's
about
what
the
is.
repetition and the role play. We've it keeps coming up on today's speakers. So so I guess do you recommend role play? Do you find that effective when training your sales staff?
Yes, we have a system where we have a role play. Of when a trainer comes in, he does a role play because role play is the actual way of understanding the issues you're facing, your salespeople are facing, and and giving them solutions rather than saying, you know what, this is what is written in the books and this is you're supposed to do. But when you do a role play, you actually come out with good rebuttals and you come up with good
Amazing. And this came
solutions.
up with the last speaker, just in regards to closing the sale. So what are your, I guess, key points or advice for people? Because I think the hardest part of the sales process is actually the actual closing part. You can argue me on that, but as a salesperson, I find that to be, you've got to really have some strong strategies, tactics. You have to do that role play to play out all these different instances and kind of not at the same time be afraid of rejection. So what are your top, top strategies or your advice for people in closing the sale?
So the closing the sale for us, its top priorities, process 3, 4, and 5, which is understanding the pain of the issue, understanding whether the client has the money, and then who makes the decision. So then you're leading the dance. It's
Right.
not the client who's leading the dance. That's very, very key because otherwise what happens is you become a consultant and you're giving free advice to the clients and the client takes it and goes to another vendor saying, or he goes to back to his own vendor and says, you know what, this is what somebody is giving me. Can you match it? And what will the existing vendor say? He doesn't want to
Right,
lose it. He'll
right.
say, yeah, I'll match it. So you need to understand whether you want to qualify the client before the client
Amazing.
qualifies you.
And this is a leadership management conference. So I guess what are your top 3 things as a sales leader that you would, 3 pieces of advice? I know there's unlimited amounts of advice when you're a sales manager that you are going to, go through with your staff. But what are your top 3 I guess strategies or pieces of advice that you would give to your sales staff that would be kind of top on your list?
Practice, practice, practice. Have your script ready. Try to be confident. Try to have an equal stature, which is very, very important. You are not below anybody. So when you're talking to a client, you're not trying to sell him anything. You're coming with a solution which he has a pain for, right? You're not selling snow to an Eskimo. If the Eskimo has some issues, he has some pain, he needs to tell us so that we
Right.
can come out with solutions. That's really key for
So
us.
number 1 would be practice. You've got another one for us?
The second one would be have an equal stature. So be equal to your client. You're not lower than them.
And a third? Confident.
Third is be confident and be happy with what you're
Amazing.
doing.
Well, that's all my questions. There's so much to sales, and with the pandemic, it's been ever changing in terms of pivoting. I think the biggest thing, would be the way we interact with our clients now, right? I mentioned this in my opening remarks, but it's changed so much, the formality of it or the way that we are connecting. The sales process has to become personal for someone to trust you. So doing this virtually rather than being able to see your client face to face or have a meal with them or share stories, in person and really have that connection has been very difficult. I find, a lot of my clients I did used to see in person all the time. So it's been difficult from that perspective, but also on the flip side, I've been finding it's easier to connect with people. More people are at home, they're not commuting. commuting, they have a little bit more time to spare to, take the time to talk to you and things like that. So what are you noticing with the pandemic? Have you noticed any trends or shifts or anything like that?
Personally, I do a cold calling. I call myself a king of cold calling. And this is a perfect opportunity to build your trust with the gatekeepers. Because CEOs are not in the office, they are at home. Who's there in the office? The receptionists are the office staff. This is an excellent time to have a chat with them, build up their rapport. So once the CEO or the staff is back in the office, you get an easy access when call up.
Right. And we have Trevor who's commented saying his advice would be salespeople do not ask for the sale. So that again goes with building trust with your clients. Once you've got that trust, they kind of put that in you. And you're right, Trevor. You shouldn't have to ask for the sale if you've done a diligent enough job giving information about your services and how you can help people. And they should be the ones that come to you. So I agree with you on that one. How do you feel about that? Salespeople do not ask for the sale.
Absolutely. They should never ask, because you're not there to sell something, there to resolve their issue. If they don't have an issue, don't sell them. It's not a sale. It's no more a sale if you don't have an issue. Don't create an issue and try to sell.
Perfect. So I just want to thank you for your time. Is there anything else that you wanted to go over or cover, or does anyone have any questions before we wrap up with Raj? If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. I don't know, Raj, if you have any concluding remarks or anything that you want to say before we sign off.
I would just say, do you see my slide
so that's your
with the
contact
name and
information.
number
Perfect.
and everything there? That's right. You can always book me for a 10 to 15 minute non-obligatory call where we can have a small chat and see where we can help you with. And it's absolutely free. There is no cost to it. And if you need some workshop to be done in your office virtually, we can arrange that as well. So if you have a good sales team of 10, 15 people and we just want to have a build-up session and you want us to come there, we can do a virtual workshop. And this whole thing will be explained in 1 hour, and maybe we can do some role play.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to, our panel will start at 3:30, just for everyone. We have about a 15-minute break, so you can attend our networking area, make some connections, or grab, a drink of water, come back. Our panel is going to start at 3:30, and we've got 4 amazing directors of sales. We're going to talk about the pandemic. We're just going to have an open conversation on that panel about just the sales industry in general, how those companies have been affected, strategies they've been doing to overcome, deal with clients, deal with, managing their staff. So join us at 3:30 on the main stage. But I just want to say thank you so much, Raj, for being here, and we'll see everyone soon. Thanks.
My pleasure, Rachel.
All right,
thanks a lot
so
for calling me on.